In this video we will take a look at how the engine cooling system works, including a brief overview of components that are critical to maintaining optimal engine temperature and common reasons for failure. As the engine reaches operating temperature, the thermostat will open, allowing coolant to travel from the engine to the radiator. The coolant temperature sensor communicates coolant temperature to the engine control module to moderate engine functions such as turning on off the cooling fan, regulating fuel mixture, and recirculating exhaust gas. The water pump cycles water to the heater core and radiator to aid in heat transfer. Typically, the water pump is driven by a pulley connected to the engine crankshaft by a belt. High-temperature coolant travels through the upper hose, shown in red, to the radiator's inlet tank. Coolant temperature drops as it travels through the radiator core tubes and fins. As the coolant disperses across a greater surface area, it expels heat to the surrounding ambient air. Lower-temperature coolant exits the radiator through the outlet tank, traveling through the lower hose, shown in blue, back to the engine. Some GPD radiators are designed for use on both a manual and automatic transmission engine. These radiators will have a transmission oil cooler for automatic transmission engines. If installed on a manual transmission engine, the transmission oil cooler inlet and outlet lines will remain sealed if not used. The engine oil and transmission oil coolers function similarly to the radiator, dispersing oil to expel heat. The oil enters and exits through separate lines from the coolant. If oil interacts with coolant, the oil will thicken and lose lubricating properties. The radiator cap is a key component in preventing overpressurization. It moderates coolant pressure in the radiator by raising the boiling point at a rate of 3 degrees Fahrenheit per psi of pressure. For example, a 15 psi cap will increase boiling point by 45 degrees Fahrenheit. The radiator cap also functions as a valve, opening and closing to allow excess coolant to flow to the reservoir tank to release pressure. The coolant in the reservoir tank is then returned to the radiator when needed. This prevents coolant loss. Cooling fan assemblies aid in heat exchange for both the radiator and condenser, each with a dedicated fan responding to the engine's needs. The condenser cooling fan is controlled by a power control module located on the high side of the AC system. The radiator fan responds to a signal from the thermostat located on the high side of the engine cooling system. The radiator cooling fan pulls ambient air through the radiator and circulates it towards the condenser and engine. When the vehicle is moving, ambient air entering from the front of the vehicle aids in heat transfer. If the engine overheats while in idle, there is likely a cooling fan failure that has reduced heat transfer. To recap, let's take a look at common reasons for failure in the engine cooling system. Electrolysis is rapid corrosion due to an electrical current imbalance in the coolant. The two main causes of electrolysis are acidic coolant or missing grounds. Always refer to the manufacturer's specifications for proper coolant mixture. A pH imbalance can cause corrosion to the radiator and damage other components in the heat exchange system. Damage to threads weakens the fitting connections, causing leaks. Extreme pressure in the radiator can be caused by a faulty radiator cap, lack of coolant, or faulty components that reduce heat transfer. If the radiator is unable to transfer heat from the engine is susceptible to irreversible damage if it overheats. These components have plastic parts that can melt and break, hence contaminating and blocking coolant flow. If one of these components fails, the radiator and interlinked components will likely fail as well. Remember, if the engine cooling system fails, the engine can overheat, so it is important to replace faulty engine cooling components immediately. For more tech tips like these, visit gpdtechtips.com.